Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change your life. Learning from the Tanakh Tzedek Sefer, the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael. Yisrael, the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael. So essentially, what we're discussing is the concept is understanding Ahavas Yisrael. I'm bringing down I wrote down the mitzvahs from the Sefer Chinuch, and we discussed it essentially that we're all like Adam, coming from Adam Arishon, so all connected, essentially connected, coming from one place. And then we said specifically comes in this level of Shema, which we talked about how there's different ways of calculating God's name. And Mark expresses that you have the Miluya, that you have all these different, and all these different parts that comes together. But specifically in the world of Tikkun. And like we said yesterday, talking about the world of Tikkun, that Tikkun is what it brings, joins things together, that they can get along. And this is sort of this concept of Ahavas Yisrael. Just a quick story before we start. There was a chassid, can't remember where he lived. It was just before the war. And I think he could have been running away from the war or something. And he came to a town, and it was freezing. He was exhausted. He was finished. And he finally comes to, and this guy was known as a big Baal Ahavas Yisrael. He comes to this house. He sees a mezuzah, and he knocks. And he's like, "Please help me." And that guy is very wary. He doesn't know who this person is. And he's like, "No, I'm not letting you in." And he's like, "Oh, I need help." And no one's letting him in. So he ends off. He sits down by the doors, and he's done. And he's like, "I'm done. Like, this is where I'm gonna die. I have no more energy. I can't do anything. It's freezing." And he's exhausted, and he's given up. And as he's about to totally give up and finish, he goes to himself, "1 second. Tomorrow morning, this guy's going to wake up to go to shul, and he's going to see me on the floor dead, and he's going to feel so bad. How can I do that to him?" So he mustered up a little more energy, and he got up, and he managed to survive. And he said, "My Ahavas Yisrael saved my life." This is the concept that Ahavas Yisrael we're talking about. Okay. So let's continue. On page 18 in this sefer and wherever else you are. So we said, Mashiach came to tell you, unlike in Toyu, how you begin as period. In Toyu, in the world of Toyu, everything is separated. One below the other. In Tikkun, it says they're arranged in 3 columns, and it means that they can come together to integrate. It's a very important attribute they should have. By Iskalus Hazois, in this integration from Tikkun, it's the mat from the forehead of the sublime man. We're talking about, because yesterday we were talking about Adam, that we all come from Adam Rishon, and Neshama is all part of his Kolos Neshama, and he's the Damal Elyon from this higher level source. We're saying in this, and in all those levels, we're showing that they all come in this level of unity. Which is coming from the level of Ein Sof, coming down into Atzilus. Which included in this Ein Sof is the whole Sedish Tash, everything. And all the details of everything that comes out of it, meaning all of us and everything in the world, all these details are included within this. Like it says, that from you is everything. Everything that comes out is coming from that place. So even though what we see here is separateness and different parts and different levels, and different worlds and different people and different things, in our source, we're all one. Hence, therefore, who hagerim gamkein inyan hiskalus achritz yasmin lagili kol echav echav b'fnei atzmei. Even when everything comes out, become separate entities and separate things. Together with that, we still are all connected. It's like family. Family, with siblings, or let's say you have siblings, but they're all connected. You feel an intrinsic connection to your family. And that's what he's saying. And that's how we should recognize that essentially everything's like that, and even more so the Jewish people. Yeah. And the Maim is explaining here that it's specifically from this dimension of the milui of Ma that causes this. And this is what it says in the Zayah. Ma is the path to a path of Atzilus. And if check in Beir Maimar Zayah, see in the Maimar explaining the Zayah, Pash Yisroi, Kol Yamin, Varchen Beir, it talks about over there, all the days are blessed. So that's all in the Kabbalistic terminology, what we explained. Now we're going to explain it. As it is in terms of us. This is all understood by the neshamas of the Yidden. That we're all one pillar, one complete whole. The Hainu meaning neshamas Adam Rishon he kalusam. That the neshama Adam Rishon is encompassing all of us. Even though Adam Rishon, like all of us, we all have different parts. So how are we saying they're all really one? All right, really, we're all connected, all encompass one from the other. Like for example, a guf, echad, like one body. Even though in your body, the person, we have our fingernails, we have our hair, we have our arms, we have our legs, all these different things. Nevertheless, yeah. Nevertheless, they all come one from the other, all connected. How are we connected? In the hand, there's life force that's similar to the foot. I'll have rhythm through the veins that connects, that it comes from the heart and it pushes blood around everywhere, the whole body. So to all other limbs, all connected. That even though they're separate things, but they're all really connected together. Like it's known. It's like you heal one limb from putting an injection in a different part of the limb. Mitad eruv hadamim, because the blood mixing. Or you put you get a blood transfusion in your arm, and it affects the whole body. So even though the separate parts, they're all connected. In this interrelation, so this interrelation of the body's organs and the soul's life force contained within them comes as a result the general life force included within more. So why does this happen? Why is it, even though we're separate, we're all connected? Because there's a chayus, there's a life force that's giving life to everything. And this is what we have to realize within ourselves. That even though the separate people, there's different yidden, different types of yidden, and you're separate to the other person, but together with that, you have the chayos klali, the general life that gives life to everything. So even though in one hand we have a level of separateness, but we have to recognize that ultimately we have this unity within us, which shines in the head and in the mind, and from there it spreads out to everything. So we're all really, it becomes connected. And this is like, for example, the hiyuli, which is like, it's like, in science, the hiyuli says over here is like referring to a matter that exists in a primeval uniform state. It's like sort of atoms, that everything in its source is like made up of atoms. So what he's saying is that ultimately you go to the depth, it's all one thing, meaning, so to speak, it's all a lakus. That you go to the depth of us, that even though you see yourself and someone else is separate, but if you recognize that really, if you go a little higher, a little deeper, you recognize all one. Just like family. When you look at your family, there's an aspect of your family that you're separate, that one person is different than the other. Your brother and your sister, and they're all different, but really, you go a little deeper, they're all connected, all come from the same parents, we all have this connection. That's what we're saying here. That even though the Jewish people as a whole, is differences, is, so to speak, the toenails and the head and the feet, and that's representing different types of yidden. But together with that, just like in the family, you go a little deeper, we all come from the same source, and we're all coming from the same place. And we see it clearly by the fact that we can help one and the other. Like the example you use, you give an injection in one part of the body and helps the other part of the body, but you could use also to explain that when there's a problem with the one part of the body, with one yid, that's also a problem with us. You can't come and say, and this is sort of, you could say, this is sort of the idea of one of the ideas of thinking about Mitzvayim. Michal, the Rebbe's, desire to help Jewish people. You could say it's not that it's like this chiddush, which it is, but you could say it in a very simple sense. What we're saying here is because we're all connected. And therefore, if there's a yid in Afghanistan that's having a problem with keeping Torah mitzvahs, it's a problem for the Rebbe. Because the Rebbe feels it. That's like the Arizal we said. Arizal would say tikkun, would say vidui, even in anything wrong. So why did you vidui? Because there's a yid that did something wrong, and we're connected, and he feels it. And so to hear with the Rebbe, you give the example of the Rebbe, example of all of us, that ultimately when we see a yid then they're lacking in something, we have to recognize that lacking in something, not just lacking in them, it's lacking in us. We're not complete within ourselves. And besides the fact we probably know for ourselves that we're not complete within our own avodah. But we have to recognize that I have to do my avodah, not just for myself, but for everyone. Yeah, and that ultimately everything is a deeper source, it's all the same. And therefore, the mind, and therefore the mind, like the example we talk about the Rebbe, which is like more like the mind, they feel all what's going on. And by the mind, the pain of the hand or the foot are equal. Yeah, and so what he says here in the note is that Tzemach Tzedek is emphasizing the fact that by the brain, it's not relating to each limb because of one's qualitative superiority over the others, but because the life energy of that limb and of all the limbs stem from that soul. So, but essentially what we're saying is it's connected, and therefore you feel everything. You say, so too the Rebbe was on this level that he was like the brain, that he feels everything, and think about it within yourself. In your mind, you feel the pain. Sometimes when you stub your toe, it hurts a lot more than when you stub your hand. And that's a sensitivity. And this is sort of ultimately sensitivity we want to have. We see now the yid, and we look at them, we don't judge them, we don't, think about them in any negative way. We have to realize this is part of me. That yid, when you look at another person, even if they're doing something wrong, you feel it's part of you. And just like within yourself, first of all, and this we're going to discuss later, you judge yourself very differently. So too, you should judge them. And also, you should try to help them if you see there's a problem. But why? Not because they're bad people, because they're part of you. And if there's something wrong with them, there's something wrong with me. Like he says, it's very something to see very clearly. Sometimes it hurts a lot more when you hurt your toenail than when you hurt your hand. Similarly, so too with the Adam Rishon, included within the dimension of all parts of the soul. Coming as a result of the source of his soul's vitality. He's coming from Chachma Ilah of Adam Elyon, which is a high level of the Kus, coming from Adam Elyon, and therefore it's encompassed within it everything. That unites with Hashem's Chachma. So you go up to a level where everything becomes united. Like it says, he in his wisdom are one. So on Adam Rishon, and that level of Adam Rishon is a oneness that's coming. And from there, it's expressing itself. So to speak, when we tap into that source, we would be able to feel this interconnection. Even though we're not over there necessarily, and we don't feel that, we have to know that that's how it is. Yeah. We'll stop here and we'll continue tomorrow. So again, a good lesson to think about when you see someone, instead of running to judge, when we look at them, or really the Aveda is when we look at someone, we have to see within ourselves how we react to that person. See someone doing something wrong or someone doing something good. whatever it is, or with ourselves. How do we look at them and how to react to them? When we see someone doing something you don't like, do you look at them negatively? You're like, oh, and then the second level of the thought process is, when I do something, do I do anything like this? And how do I react to myself when I do it? Because ultimately, of course, when it comes to ourselves, we're very understanding, and we justify all what we do. But are we doing that to the same extent as someone else? That's really the question. And ultimately, really, it's an important lesson to recognize that we don't know what's going on in anyone else's lives. And even though you might see something going wrong, or they're doing something wrong, don't be so quick to judge. You don't know the backstory. Yeah, everyone should have an amazing day. And thank you for joining.